Okay, let's dive into this. We all know that feeling, right?
Mm-hmm.
You walk into a space that's just so familiar. Maybe it's the lighting or the way the chair is perfectly molded to your back. There's that quiet hum.
Right.
And all of a sudden, the tension you've been holding on to all day just, it melts away.
It dissolves.
Yeah. So the question is, why does this specific space, your home, so often feel more energizing,
Yeah.
more meaningful even than a busy street or a big social gathering?
That is the absolute core question our sources get into. And what's so fascinating is how much we seem to misunderstand that feeling.
How so?
Well, we tend to assume there are people who love being home are, avoiding something out there.
Right, that they're shrinking their world.
Exactly. But the material we dove into, it suggests the total opposite is true. They're not shrinking away from something. They're finally connecting with something profound in here.
Something deeper.
Something deeper, something wiser.
Yeah, that reframes the whole conversation right from the start. So our mission today is to really unpack the science, the insights that suggest staying home isn't about shrinking your life. It's about expanding your inner universe.
That's a great way to put it.
We're looking at sources that explore this inner design of people who genuinely thrive in their own space. And they see it not just as a preference, but as a fundamental psychological need.
And to really put that in context, the sources urge us to think about systems. We talk about infrastructure, technology, supply chains.
All the external stuff.
All the external stuff. But one of the most underrated systems is the human nervous system and how it responds to its environment. And the central finding is this. For a lot of people, home isn't just a place. It's a power source.
A power source. I like that. I think a lot of you listening can probably feel that right now. That moment you walk in the door, your shoulders drop, your breathing slows down. What exactly is that power source charging? Is it just energy or something more, like resilience?
Oh, it's absolutely resilience and capacity. That physical shift you feel, that's your nervous system doing an instant risk assessment and just concluding total safety.
Okay.
And the sources establish that safety is the non-negotiable condition you need for complex thought, for creativity, for emotional maintenance. When you feel safe, your system can finally start scanning for threats.
And it can use those resources for other things.
It can finally start processing everything you've been holding back all day.
And there's real science that backs this up. When the brain labels an environment as low threat, so no social performance needed, no unpredictable stimuli, your body literally stops pumping out high levels of stress hormones.
Right. That sigh of relief when you sit down on your couch.
Yeah.
That's your cortisol level dropping. That's your heart rate steadying. It's the physiological signal that recovery has begun.
And that switch is so critical because, let's face it, the outside world is just inherently loud.
Systematically loud. And we don't just mean sound, like traffic. We mean the whole sensory barrage.
The bright lights, the phone notifications.
The expectation to always be on, to respond immediately. The constant social interaction.
It all adds up to this huge cognitive drain.
Precisely. And for individuals who have a higher sensitivity to that external stimuli, and that's a much wider spectrum of people than just, say, introverts, that buildup isn't just tiring. It actively gets in the way of their ability to function.
It's what the sources call cognitive load.
It's pure cognitive load. You're using an enormous amount of mental energy just to filter the environment.
So if my brain is busy processing lights and sounds and social cues, the part of my brain for deep thinking, the prefrontal cortex, it's just tied up in defense mode.
Exactly. You're spending your daily energy budget on filtering the input, not generating output. That's the difference between surviving a day and thriving in it.
So when someone says, I just love being home, what they're really saying, according to the sources, is,
this is where I can finally stop managing all that noise and I can start hearing the signal.
and that signal is their own inner world.
It's their own thoughts, their own feelings coming to the surface.
Let's zoom in on that, because the next big misconception the sources tackle is this idea that staying home means doing nothing.
Right, that it's passive.
But actually, some of the most meaningful work we do happens in solitude.
This is all about self-knowledge. Think about what one source called identity fragmentation.
Okay.
When you're around people all day, you're constantly adjusting. You laugh at a joke you don't think is funny. You nod at an opinion you don't share.
You're smoothing things over.
Yeah.
It's a survival tactic.
It's social survival, but it is deeply exhausting to your core self.
So at home, that performance stops. You start being instead of performing. You think in your own unfiltered internal voice.
You feel what you actually feel, not what you think you should feel in that situation. And the sources really emphasize that this practice of unfiltered existence builds this incredibly rare form of self-knowledge.
You find your own boundaries.
Your boundaries, your true preferences, the quiet language of your own emotions, that's the work. It's generative, not passive at all.
That's a huge idea, that real grounding comes from solitude. But let's push back with the counter-argument they bring up, the fear of isolation. If you pull back to do this inner work, aren't you risking rejection?
It's a natural fear, but the findings show this fascinating paradox of connection. The sources are really clear. Loving home isn't about rejecting people.
Okay.
In fact, people who prioritize solitude often have deeper, more meaningful relationships precisely because they're so selective.
We're going for quality over quantity.
Absolutely. They crave that kind of connection where, silence feels comfortable,
Yeah,
where you
okay.
can just be with someone and their presence is enough, no need to fill the air. That is true intimacy.
So solitude isn't the opposite of connection.
It's the foundation of it. It's the absolute prerequisite. You can't offer someone your authentic self if you've never spent enough time alone to figure out who that self actually is.
You have to know what you're bringing to the table.
Solitude defines what you bring to the table.
Let's talk about loneliness directly, because people see someone who loves being home and they just project isolation onto them. But the sources argue loneliness is about feeling disconnected, right?
Exactly. And you can feel profoundly disconnected in a room crowded with people who don't really see you.
I think we've all felt that.
For sure. Those who thrive at home get that being alone is not the same as being lonely. It's peace. Or, as one source put it, it's intimacy with your own soul.
And that takes a certain emotional maturity, the ability to sit with your own thoughts, even the tough ones, without needing someone else to validate you or distract you.
That internal stability is a game changer. When you stop chasing external approval because you've learned to give it to yourself, that is one of the most liberating moves you can make.
But why is the outside world so draining for these people in the first place? That brings us to emotional sensitivity.
Yes, the sources suggest many home lovers aren't just introverted. They're deeply empathic. They feel the environment with incredible intensity.
They absorb everything, like emotional static. They walk into a meeting and they can just feel the tension between two people before anyone says a word.
Or they listen to a friend's hard story and they literally carry that weight home with them. They're constantly managing not just their own inner world, but everyone else's reflected emotions too.
It sounds like running constant background diagnostic scans on everyone around you.
That's a perfect analogy. So when someone like that gets home and closes the door, they aren't escaping life. They're performing a necessary psychological maneuver. Their home becomes an emotional airlock.
An emotional airlock. I get that. But here's the challenge. Doesn't that reliance on a perfectly safe space make you less resilient when you go back out? Shouldn't we be training our nervous system to handle the noise?
That's a really valid point, and the sources see it coming. They clarify the airlock isn't about building dependence, it's about essential recovery.
Okay.
You wouldn't tell a marathon runner to skip recovery and just run another race, right?
No, of course not.
For the emotionally sensitive, the airlock restores their capacity to engage. It lets them stop being a mirror for everyone else and start being a window to themselves. It's how they rebuild.
So in that sacred space, they can finally drop the guard they didn't even know they were holding up.
Yes. For anyone who has spent years wearing a professional mask, a social mask, a just be cheerful mask, taking it off in that safe container is the most radical act of self-care there is.
This connects directly to another idea that gets a bad rap. Routine.
Oh, absolutely. Monotony, rigidity.
Being unadventurous. But the sources argue that for our nervous system, predictability is deeply calming. It stops the brain from constantly scanning for threats.
So for someone who loves being home, routine isn't monotony, it's emotional regulation. Think about that cognitive load again. Every tiny choice, what to wear, what mug to use, it all burns fuel.
So that morning ritual, the same coffee, the same chair by the window, those aren't limitations, they're anchors. They remove micro-decisions and conserve that precious mental energy.
Exactly. And that freed up energy doesn't just vanish, it gets redirected to creative thought, to deep emotional processing. And the sources say this is especially vital for seniors.
How so?
As your life accumulates experience, it accumulates complexity. Building a life that honors a certain rhythm isn't giving up. It's just masterful self-management. It's wisdom.
And if we follow that logic, once your nervous system feels stable and safe, your mind starts to wander, but in a really generative way.
That's where the insights bubble up, where thoughts can unfold in their original, unfiltered form. It's that time plus space equation.
Right.
For older people, having that time plus the mental space plus a lifetime of experience, that is fertile ground for a creative bloom. Writing a memoir, connecting the dots of your life story.
That kind of work just can't happen when you're overwhelmed by external noise.
Impossible.
But let's be real, not every moment at home is this inspiring creative burst. Sometimes you just come home bone-tired and collapse. You just feel drained.
And this is a major cultural blind spot. Our society treats that kind of deep rest like it's laziness.
Yeah.
Right. But what's really happening is emotional decompression. Think about the energy you spend all day just managing your facial expressions, your tone of voice, smoothing over tension.
That's the cost of social gravity.
What a great phrase for it. And the moment you're home, your body knows the performance is over, the mask drops. And that intense fatigue you feel. The sources call that healing, disguised as exhaustion.
Healing disguised as exhaustion.
Yeah, it's the required recovery from all that impression management.
It makes so much sense. The performance ends, and the emotional debt you've built up all day gets paid back in just profound tiredness. So the retreat restores your ability to actually engage with life authentically.
It's the rhythm. Engagement and retreat, output and recovery. And the sources say we have to accept that people just have different operating systems. Some people are energized externally. They're the explorers, the noisemakers.
And others are energized internally. They're the observers, the meaning listeners, who thrive in stillness.
And neither one is better. The world needs both. The quiet thinkers are essential. They perform this vital function. They translate chaos into clarity. They find the narrative in the noise because they have this stillness to actually notice it.
So synthesizing all of this for you, our listener, the deep dive really suggests that loving your home is a high form of self-knowledge and self-care. It's about consciously building an internal sanctuary.
A place of absolute security that you can then carry inside you wherever you go.
And that ability to be internally grounded, that is emotional maturity.
It's the ability to be alone without feeling lonely, to be still without feeling restless, to find your meaning in authenticity, not in applause.
When you've built that internal sanctuary, you can go out into the world's complexity without losing yourself in it.
That's the goal.
So if you love staying home, understand this. You are not missing out. You are tuning in. You're doing the critical inner work that shapes everything else. When you're at peace with yourself, you bring that calm with you.
And that quiet space you love isn't a retreat from power. It is one of the most powerful environments a person can grow in because it's where wisdom grows through honest self-reflection. It's the only place you can really develop the perspective to see the big picture.